The sound of screaming pierced through the wooden walls of that North Dakota cabin, but what froze my blood was the sight before my eyes. My 15-year-old daughter, Claire, her fragile body pinned down by the merciless hands of my ex-husband's new wife, Anita, was shoved forward until her face hovered just inches from the roaring fireplace. I could hear the crackle of burning logs, smell the thick smoke of cedar, and see the terror in Claire's wide, glassy eyes. She was fighting to breathe, her little palms flailing against Anita's grip as the orange glow painted her skin in flickering shadows. The sheer cruelty of the act twisted my stomach into knots. Anita's voice was cold, almost calm. "Maybe now you will learn respect," she hissed, as if tormenting my daughter was a lesson worth teaching. And all the while, my ex-husband Donald sat in his chair, beer in hand, frozen in silence. That was the night I realized something much darker was happening behind closed doors. That was the night I swore I would come back, not just as a visitor, but as a mother prepared to uncover every secret they thought they had buried. Before I continue, let me take a moment to appreciate you, my dear listeners. If you are subscribed to this channel, thank you for being the heartbeat of this community. And for all my new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that button. Your support is the fuel and energy that powers stories like this one. Do not forget to engage with your thoughts in the comments because your voice matters here. Now, let us dive back into the story. My name is Rebecca. I am 52 years old and I live in Fargo, North Dakota. Life has not always been kind to me, but my greatest gift has always been my daughter, Claire. She was born from my marriage to Donald, the man I once thought was the love of my life. But years of bitterness, arguments, and unspoken resentments chipped away at our marriage until divorce became the only path left. When Donald remarried Anita, I wanted to believe he had finally found happiness. I wanted to believe she could be kind to my daughter. But I was wrong. Claire was my soft-spoken, thoughtful child. She had her father's hazel eyes and my stubborn chin. She was the kind of girl who spent hours sketching in her notebook, dreaming of becoming an artist one day. But after Anita came into the picture, I began to notice a change. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed, her laughter became rare, and whenever I dropped her off at her father's house, she would hesitate, gripping my hand for just a second longer before letting go. Donald always brushed it off. "She just needs to adjust," he would say. But I knew my daughter's silence was telling me something. The night of the fireplace incident was the breaking point, but it was not the first time Anita had tried to hurt Claire. Weeks earlier, my daughter had called me in hushed whispers, her voice trembling. "Mom, she does not like me. She says I'm in the way. She says I ruin everything." I had begged Donald to listen, but he rolled his eyes. "Rebecca, you're poisoning her against Anita. Do not drag Claire into your bitterness." I had swallowed my rage, trying to keep the peace, but peace was not what Anita wanted. That night after the incident, Claire's cheeks were flushed with tears, her hair smelled faintly of smoke, and her eyes begged me not to leave her there. But Donald defended Anita. "She slipped. Anita was just trying to catch her before she fell into the fire. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill." A molehill? My child's life could have been taken, her face scarred forever, and he called it a molehill? That was when I understood the depth of Donald's denial. He wasn't blind. He was choosing not to see. But I couldn't ignore it. A mother does not ignore the silent cries of her child. The very next day, I pulled Claire aside and asked her to tell me everything. She hesitated, her fingers twisting around the sleeves of her sweater. And then she whispered the words that made my chest ache with rage. "Mom, she has been hurting me for months. She pushes me, she pulls my hair. She locks me outside in the cold. And Dad? Dad just tells me to stop exaggerating. My heart shattered. My daughter had been carrying this pain alone, silenced by the two people who were supposed to protect her. That night, I went home with fire in my veins. Anita thought she could break my daughter. Donald thought he could dismiss me. But they didn't know the kind of storm a mother could unleash when her child's life was on the line. And as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something much darker. If Anita was capable of this, what else was she hiding?
When you are a mother, you learn to read silence the way others read words. Claire's silence had been screaming at me for months, but now the truth was finally spilling out like broken glass cutting into my heart. I sat at my kitchen table in Fargo, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of untouched coffee as Claire's confession replayed in my mind. The fire, the bruises, the whispered threats, every word gnawed at me. I wanted to storm into Donald's house and rip Anita away from my daughter, but I knew rage alone would not win this war. Anita was clever, the kind of woman who smiled sweetly in public and saved her venom for when no one was looking. If I wanted to protect Claire, I needed more than fury. I needed proof. The story of how Anita came into our lives was one I had tried to bury. After the divorce, Donald was restless, angry, and desperate to prove that he had moved on. I was still grieving the death of a marriage that had spanned 2 decades. But within a year, Anita had appeared in his life like a shadow. She was younger than me, sharp-tongued, and with the kind of beauty that seemed to feed Donald's ego. At first, I tried to keep my distance. I did not want to interfere in his new life. But Anita had a way of slithering into every corner of our existence. She insisted on being part of parent-teacher meetings. She controlled holiday schedules, and slowly I realized she was not just Donald's wife. She was positioning herself as Claire's replacement mother. The thought alone made my skin crawl. Claire never said much, but she did not need to. A mother knows. I saw the way she stiffened when Anita's name was mentioned, how her shoulders tensed when she had to pack her bag for a weekend at her father's house. Now I understood why. I began to keep a journal. Every bruise Clara mentioned, every insult Anita hurled, every night Claire called me crying, I wrote it all down. I even took photographs of the faint marks on Claire's arms when she allowed me to. My anger burned like a furnace, but I forced myself to be patient. If I charged into Donald's house with nothing but accusations, he would dismiss me as bitter Rebecca all over again. I could not let Anita hide behind his blindness anymore. One evening, as Claire sat at my kitchen counter sketching, she pulled back her sleeve absent-mindedly, and my stomach twisted. A faint purplish mark circled her wrist, the shape of fingers. "Claire," I whispered, my voice trembling, "did she do this to you?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "She grabbed me because I spilled milk. Dad said I need to be less clumsy." I nearly dropped the plate in my hands. Milk! A child was being assaulted over spilled milk. I wanted to scream, but Claire's fragile face reminded me to stay strong. I pulled her into my arms, inhaling the faint scent of her strawberry shampoo, and swore silently that no one would touch her again. The breaking point came when I confronted Donald directly. I sat across from him in his living room, the smell of stale beer lingering in the air, and laid my evidence on the coffee table. Photographs, journal entries, everything. "Donald," I said firmly, "Anita is hurting Claire. And if you refuse to see it, then you are just as guilty as she is." His face reddened and his eyes narrowed. "Rebecca, this is ridiculous. Anita loves Claire. She is strict, yes, but Claire needs discipline. You are filling her head with lies because you can't stand that I moved on." His words sliced through me like knives. How could a father, a man who once held Claire in his arms as a newborn, dismiss her pain so easily? But I saw in his eyes. He knew. Somewhere deep inside, he knew I was telling the truth. He simply chose his pride over his daughter. "Do you think she is lying about the bruises?" I demanded. "She is dramatic like you." He snapped. The room spun around me, fury thundering in my chest. For a moment, I almost lost control, but then I steadied myself. Donald was no longer the man I loved. He was a coward hiding behind a woman who was destroying our child. That night, I sat in my car outside their house, the winter wind rattling against the windows. I stared at the glow of the fireplace through the curtains, the same fire that nearly scarred my daughter forever, and I made a decision. If Donald would not protect Claire, then I would, and I would not do it quietly. The war had begun. I started speaking to a lawyer, gathering not only the evidence of abuse, but also records of Donald's neglect. His drinking, his absence at school events, the nights Claire said he disappeared for hours. The lawyer's voice was calm but firm. If you can prove the environment is unsafe, you have a chance to fight for full custody. Full custody! Those words became my beacon, but I knew Anita would not go down without a fight. Weeks later, Claire called me late at night, her voice trembling. "Mom, she locked me out again. I was outside for an hour until Dad came home." The tears rolled down my cheeks as I gripped the phone. "Stay strong, baby. I promise you, this will not last forever." And that was the moment I swore I would step back into that house. Not as a guest, not as a helpless ex-wife, but as a mother ready to confront the woman who dared to hurt my child. Little did I know, the confrontation would unleash a truth darker than anything I had imagined.
The day I walked back into Donald's house, the winter sky hung low and gray, pressing down on the streets of Fargo like a heavy blanket. My boots crunched against the icy driveway, and my heart hammered with every step. I had been here countless times before, but this time felt different. I was not walking in as Donald's ex-wife. I was walking in as a mother ready to reclaim her child. Claire opened the door, her thin arms wrapped around me tightly, and I felt her trembling even through her coat. She whispered, "Please, do not leave me this time." Her words cut into me like shards of glass. Behind her, Anita appeared, her lips curled into that smug smile I had come to hate. She looked me up and down as if I were a stray dog on her porch. "Rebecca," she said smoothly, "what an unexpected surprise." Unexpected? She knew exactly why I was there. Donald was in the living room, slouched in his recliner, staring into the flames of the fireplace. The same fireplace that had nearly swallowed Claire whole. His beer rested on the side table, half empty. "Donald," I began, forcing my voice to stay calm, "we need to talk. Now." He groaned, rubbing his temples. "Rebecca, not this again. You have been stirring up drama for weeks. Claire is fine. You just cannot let go." I turned to Anita, my anger boiling over. "Fine? Is that what you call pushing her face into the fire? Is that what you call locking her out in the freezing cold?" Anita's eyes glinted, sharp and dangerous. "Careful, Rebecca. Making false accusations could get you in trouble." I laughed bitterly, though my hands were shaking. "False? I have proof. Photographs, a journal of every bruise, every cruel word, every night Claire cried herself to sleep because of you. You think you can hide behind Donald's blindness forever, but I see you for what you are." Anita's mask slipped for just a moment. Her smile faltered, her jaw clenched. Then she turned to Donald with mock innocence. "You are really going to let her stand here and slander me in our own home?" Donald shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us. "Rebecca, enough. You are poisoning Claire. Anita is trying her best, and you cannot accept it." That's when Claire's voice, small but fierce, broke through the tension.
Dad, stop lying to yourself. She hurts me. She laughs when you're not looking. She says I ruin everything. The room fell into a suffocating silence. My daughter's words hung heavy in the air, undeniable, unshakable. Donald's face twisted, torn between the daughter he once held and the woman he had chosen. For a brief second, I saw the flicker of realization in his eyes. But Anita moved quickly. You little brat, you think anyone will believe you over me? You're just like your mother, weak, pathetic, always playing the victim. Claire flinched, and I stepped in front of her. Don't you dare speak to my daughter like that. My voice was trembling, but it carried a strength I had not felt in years. Then it happened the moment that stripped Anita of her disguise. She lunged. In one swift movement, Anita grabbed Claire's arm and yanked her forward. Claire screamed, and I reacted on instinct, shoving Anita back with every ounce of strength I had. She stumbled, her face twisting into something feral, something no longer human. See, I cried, pointing at her as she struggled to regain her balance. This is who she really is, Donald. This is the woman you chose over your own daughter. Donald's beer bottle slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. His face went pale, his eyes wide, as if he were finally seeing Anita for the first time. But Anita was not done. She snarled, her voice dripping with venom. You think you can take her away from me? You think you can waltz in here after all these years and destroy everything I built over my dead body? The room erupted into chaos. Donald shouted, Claire sobbed, and Anita's rage filled the space like poison. I pulled Claire into my arms, shielding her from Anita's reach, my own heart pounding like a war drum. Donald staggered forward, his hands shaking. Anita, stop! I can't let you do this anymore. Anita's anger burned with betrayal. After everything I gave you, you are choosing them? Her words cracked like thunder, and for the first time, Donald did not answer. He simply looked at Claire, tears brimming in his eyes. And in that silence, I knew the truth was out. The mask had shattered, the monster revealed. But the battle was not over. Anita's rage had only just begun to unleash itself. And what happened next would change all of our lives, forever.
Anita's scream tore through the room like a wild animal. Her face was twisted, her hands clenched into claws, and for a moment I thought she might lunge again. Claire clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder, her tiny frame trembling as if she could shatter at any second. Donald stepped between us, his arms outstretched. His voice cracked under the weight of years of denial. Enough, Anita. This ends now. But Anita was not listening. Her eyes darted around the room, her breathing heavy. You cannot do this to me, Donald. You cannot throw me away for them. I built this life with you. She jabbed a finger at me. She is nothing but a bitter old shadow, and that girl is weak like her mother. The venom in her words made my stomach turn, but what I saw in Donald's face was something I had prayed for: clarity. For the first time in years, his gaze was fixed not on Anita's beauty or her manipulation, but on the truth. He saw his daughter's swollen eyes, he saw the bruises, he saw the monster he had invited into his home. Get out, he said, his voice low but steady. Anita froze. What? I said get out, he repeated louder this time, his voice echoing off the wooden walls. You will not touch my daughter again. The silence that followed was unbearable. Anita's mouth opened as if to argue, but the fury in Donald's face stopped her. She grabbed her coat from the chair, muttering curses under her breath, and stormed out into the freezing night. The door slammed so hard that the windows rattled. Claire and I sat in stunned silence. My hands stroked her hair, my heart still pounding like a drumbeat in my chest. Donald stood by the door, staring at the broken beer bottle on the floor, his shoulders sagging as if years of guilt had finally crushed him. Rebecca, he whispered, his voice thick with shame. I should have seen it. I should have protected her. I failed. The bitterness rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. This was not about me or Donald. It was about Claire. I held her face gently, wiping her tears with my thumbs. You are safe now, baby. She will not hurt you again. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. Donald called her Anita's departure temporary, but deep down, I knew she was gone for good. Her cruelty had been exposed, her mask ripped away, and there was no patching it back together. Claire stayed with me full-time while I pushed forward with custody papers. The lawyer assured me that Anita's outburst, combined with the journal and photographs, had given me a strong case. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift slightly off my chest. But healing was not immediate. At night, Claire would wake from nightmares, screaming that Anita was pulling her back into the fire. I would hold her tightly until her sobs softened, whispering that I was here, that no one could take her from me. Each time I prayed silently that my words would stitch her wounds, even if only a little. Donald tried to visit. He brought flowers, gifts, apologies, but the wall between him and Claire was higher than ever. She looked at him with guarded eyes, her once innocent trust shattered. One afternoon, she said softly, "Mom, why did he not believe me? Why did he choose her?" I sat there, my throat tight, searching for words that would not break her further. Sometimes people let pride blind them, Claire. Sometimes they are too afraid to face the truth. But that does not mean your pain was not real, and it does not mean you are not worthy of being believed. She nodded slowly, her sketchbook resting on her lap, and for the first time in weeks, she began to draw again. The soft scratch of her pencil was like music to me. The day custody was finalized, I stood in the courthouse, my hands trembling as the judge declared that Claire would remain under my care. Relief washed over me like rain after a long drought. I glanced at Claire, who was sitting beside me, her small hand gripping mine. For the first time in months, her smile returned, faint but real. Donald did not fight. He sat in silence, his face hollow, perhaps realizing that his silence had cost him more than a marriage. It had cost him his daughter's trust. Now, months later, I sit at the same kitchen table where I once wept into untouched coffee. The scars of this story remain, etched deep into our lives, but they have also taught me something I will never forget. Silence is dangerous. Denial is deadly. And a child's voice, no matter how small, must always be heard. Anita thought she could break us. Donald thought he could ignore us. But Claire and I survived. And survival, I have learned, is its own kind of victory. So, to everyone listening, I leave you with this. Believe your children, fight for them, and never allow fear or pride to silence the truth. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Do you think Donald deserves forgiveness? Or did he lose that right when he chose Anita over Claire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective matters. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Because every story told is a chance to heal and a chance to be heard.